What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1, and it's time for the toughest conference to predict. It's the Big 12, and we're going to give you our predictions here in this video. Like I said, it's tough to predict what's going to happen in this conference every single year, it seems like. You've got teams that are expected to be terrible. They turn out to be really good. You have teams that you think are going to be really good. They turn out to be terrible. It's just, there's a lot of parity in this conference, and I think it's actually overblown a little bit when we talk about how good and bad teams are, because there are just so many close games in this conference. You could have a team that only wins a couple of conference games, but they lose a bunch of close ones, and they're actually not a bad team, but the record suggests that they are. And then you sometimes wind up with teams that finish 7-2, and maybe they're not as good as that record would suggest, just because they won a lot of close games. So it's whoever wins those close games, and it's tough to predict. So we're going to go into it here, and I have noticed some of the comments on my other videos. People are looking at some of my predictions and saying, yeah, there's no way that's going to happen. And it seems like every one of those, where there's a disagreement, it's when I go away from what the expectations are nationally, when you look at preseason magazines and all that. And it's possible that I'm going to miss those teams, but there will be teams that are not going to finish how everyone expects them to finish. And again, maybe I miss those teams, but it's very interesting. You guys have to keep in mind that there will be surprises, and it'll be both for good and bad. We'll see teams that are a lot better than you expect and a lot worse than you expect. So with that being said, let's jump in. UCF finishes, and I'll kind of give you my confidence level on each team, on how confident I am that they're going to finish around that number, because there are some teams that I'm not as confident on. Now, UCF is a team I'm pretty confident they're not going to be very good. You look at the roster, it's just not very good. I know Scott Frost comes back, but I don't think he's going to be able to do a whole lot in year one. I don't think any team loses more than 7 games. I think, again, with the parity in this conference, you'll see everyone at least win a couple of games. I've got UCF, again, at the bottom, 2-7, 4-8 overall, and a few other teams there. Oklahoma State, I think this is actually probably the worst roster. They lost a lot of guys in the portal, and the players they brought in are just not players that have produced at this level. A lot of group of 5, I think even FCS players coming in at Oklahoma State. Do those players, are they hungry? Do they buy in? Does this team play really, really hard for Mike Gundy? I think there's potential with Oklahoma State that they could surprise. But when I look at just the overall talent level of this roster, I have a hard time seeing that happening. So I've got them at 4-8. Not as confident as UCF, just because I think Mike Gundy's a great coach. I know it was a rough year for them last year. This is a team that I think is a little bit tougher to predict, but I feel pretty confident that they're going to be near the bottom of this conference. And then we got Arizona, 4-8, 2-7. Another team that I just don't see being all that great this year. You do have Noah Fafita back. Of course, he did not play well last year. 2 years ago, though, he looked like one of the better quarterbacks in I guess in the Pac-12 back then. But I look at this Arizona team, and I don't expect a whole lot from them. Maybe a little bit more of a wild card, because you've got a second-year coach, and maybe he's able to turn things around. So maybe I'm not as confident on Arizona, but I do expect them to finish near the bottom. Then you got West Virginia, a team, I've got them at 5-7, 3-6 in the Big 12. Not the most talented roster either. I think all 4 of these teams, roster-wise, are near the bottom of this conference. But you got Rich Rod coming back, and we've seen him have some success at some places, so maybe he's able to have some success right away. They added a lot of transfers. They got a returning quarterback. So, West Virginia is a team that I think could maybe do a little bit better than that. Could possibly do worse, though. So 5-7 is, I think, a pretty good medium for them. I could see them going 3-9, or even maybe up to 7-5. But 5-7 is where I'm landing with this team. And so, again, I think these are, roster-wise, the worst 4 teams of the Big 12. But, again, sometimes it's not about talent. I mean, there's not going to be a huge talent gap between the top team and the bottom team in the Big 12. It's more about the players buying in. It's about the schemes and all that. I wouldn't be surprised here if any of these teams did a little bit better, maybe made it to a bowl game. But I do not see a team here that, it would shock me. It would shock me if a team out of this group made it to the Big 12 championship. All right, let's move on to BYU. Got them at 6-6, 3-6 in the conference. A team that I was a lot higher on at the end of the season, but they've had some transfers. Some pretty good players leave, lose their starting quarterback. Of course, last year we didn't know anything about Jake Retzlaff really, and he wound up being really good. So maybe they've got another guy. I don't know. I just, it's hard for me to be super optimistic. I think there are enough pieces there from a really good team last year to where they can have a decent season, get to 6-6, 3-6 in the conference. But this is one of those teams I'm not very confident on this prediction. I think it could go really either way. So yeah, I'm kind of in the middle with BYU. Next we go to Utah. 6-6 overall, 3-6 in the conference. I do feel pretty confident with this prediction. I don't think this is going to be, when I look at the roster, I don't think this is a typical Utah team that we've seen in the past. I think they're, last year they lost some close games. I think they could maybe go 7-5, 8-4, something like that. I don't see them having another really like a bad season again. I think 6-6 getting to a bowl game would be a pretty good year. So, again, when I look at Utah, it's a tough one to figure out. You've got Devin Zampier coming in, a transfer quarterback, a dual threat guy who played, not at the Power 4 level, but has proven he can be a capable quarterback. And then you look at the rest of this team for Utah, and it's just, receivers, tight ends, who's going to step up there? Defensive line, maybe some question marks. I think the run game will be pretty solid. I think, the secondary linebackers should be pretty solid. Offensive line should be pretty solid. So yeah, it's going to come down to quarterback play for them, and can they develop a passing game? If they can, then perhaps they can exceed these expectations. Next, we've got Houston, 7-5, 4-5 in the conference. I think this is a team that takes a step up. Willie Fritz is a really good coach. I think he's proven that. You bring in Connor Wigman at quarterback, some other pieces there. I think Houston could be a team on the rise this year. I think they could, again, bounce back from where they were last year, get to 7-5. Not one I feel super confident on. Maybe they're going to bounce back even more. Maybe they're going to push for a Big 12 championship run, or maybe it's going to be another disappointing season. Again, this is a team that I do not feel super confident on, but I'm going with 7-5. We move on to TCU, 8-4, 5-4 in the conference. I think this is going to be a good team. I think their roster, returning quarterback, everything they've got coming back, this is a team that we're getting to the teams now where I think, I would say right here, from here up, these are teams that I think can get to and win a Big 12 championship this year. So yeah, we are into that top tier in my opinion. TCU, really no question marks. The roster is solid across the board. So this is a team you want to watch out for. I would say 8-4, 9-3 is probably where they wind up. And I think this is a team, again, that could possibly win the Big 12. And then I think Kansas State's another team that could do that. I've got them at 8-4, 5-4 in the conference. I think they could have a really, really solid season this year. I think some people are maybe overrating this team a little bit. I think some questions on the offensive line, and then I don't think the defense is going to be great. I think it'll be solid. And then Avery Johnson at quarterback. Like, sometimes you see flashes and you think this kid could be really good, and then other times it's like, I don't know. So I haven't really made my mind up on him. I think this is a big year for him. And if they get something going in that passing game, the defense is better than I expect. Yeah, Kansas State could win the Big 12 this year, but I've got them at 8-4. Next, we move on to Cincinnati. So this is a surprise team for me. I think Cincinnati is going to surprise people this year. And again, you've got to pick some surprise teams if you're going to be accurate. If you go by the plus or minus 3 from Mark Rogers, every year in the Power 4, there are like 20 plus teams that win or lose 3 games more than the year before. So again, they went 6-6 last year. They're going to go 9-3 or 3-9 the next year. And a lot of teams do that. I actually went through my predictions. I've only got 15 of them, so I probably do not have enough. So if you're thinking I'm taking some crazy chances, I'm actually not taking enough chances, because it's going to happen. And figuring out those teams is always a challenge. I think Cincinnati could be one of those. I love their running back duo, a veteran quarterback coming back, some good players on defense, one of the best defensive linemen in the country. I think this could be a very dangerous team and a sleeper team. If there's going to be a surprise team in the Big 12, I think it's going to be Cincinnati. Again, I think they're going to have a very solid season. I think they might even beat Nebraska, and if they do, watch out for Cincinnati. They could really make a run this year. Again, I know I've had some surprise teams. I had Northwestern in the Big Ten, and I think a lot of people laughed at that, but maybe I missed. Maybe it's not going to be Northwestern. Maybe it's not going to be Cincinnati, but I'm telling you, someone is going to surprise people, And figuring out who that is, of course, is the challenge. I'm going with Cincinnati, though. I think they're probably my biggest surprise team in this conference. And so, yeah, with Cincinnati, Kansas State, TCU, and then we've got 6 more teams to look at. That means I've got 9 teams that I think could win the Big 12 this year. That's how much parity you've got. It's going to be a fun year, I think. Let's move on to the top 6. We'll go to Kansas next. I think this team bounces back this year. 8-4 overall, 6-3. They lost some close games. Jalen Daniels, if he can stay healthy, they've got a veteran quarterback returning. The schedule sets up pretty well for Kansas in the Big 12 as well. There are no real holes for them. I think they're pretty solid across the board. So yeah, I think they can get to 8-4. Then we move up ahead of them. Baylor is a team I think is very dangerous. I've got them at 8-4, 6-3 in the Big 12, but I think they, I was really kind of going back and forth on this team. I think just roster-wise, they're probably top 5 in the Big 12. They do have a little bit of a tricky schedule when you look at it, so I think that could hold them back from really making a run. I look at their receivers, their running back room, very good. Defense is pretty solid. I think you've got a very underrated quarterback returning there in Sawyer Robertson. So, yeah, Baylor's a very dangerous team, and I think this is a team that absolutely could be in that Big 12 championship game and possibly win it. I think I'm actually on the low end here. I feel like if I'm wrong on Baylor, it's because they do better than 8-4. I don't think they do much worse, like maybe 7-5. But I think Baylor has a lot of potential this year, so watch out for them. Again, I didn't quite go with that prediction because of the schedule, but I think they could be in that conversation. You got Colorado next. Okay, so this is one that I think this is going to surprise some people. Because Shedeur Sanders is gone. Travis Hunter is gone. You've had Deion Sanders and the health issues, and you just have some question marks about this team. I get that. But when I really break down the roster from top to bottom, I think this team is better than last year. Yeah, maybe they don't have that star player in Travis Hunter, but you got Caden Salter, a veteran quarterback coming in. I think he'll do pretty well in this offense. And maybe the team buys in more, maybe it's more of like a team approach versus just the superstar approach. I think they're really good on the line of scrimmage. Offensive and defensive lines, I think, could really, I think they could challenge with anyone in the Big 12 up front. So I think they're really good there. I think the skill position players will step up for them. I think Deion coaching the secondary, they'll play well there. I think the defense overall will play pretty well. I think this might be the best defense Colorado's had since he's been there. So I am actually high on Colorado. Again, I know a lot of people think that they're going to fall off this year. I do not. I kind of did at first. Like when we go back to the end of last season, I was thinking maybe Colorado doesn't do a whole lot this year. But when I really look at the roster, I think Colorado could possibly be making a run there in the Big 12. And I think their schedule sets up pretty well as well. Also, next we go to number 3. That's Iowa State, another team that I think could win the Big 12 this year. I've got them at 9-3, 6-3 in the conference. It's just a solid team. I mean, it's just a solid team. Rocco Becht is back at quarterback. They've got a great 1-2 punch at running back. This is just going to be a good team. The defense should be solid. A little bit, maybe some concerns on the back end. If they go up against a really good passing team, that could be an issue for them. But overall, I think they're really solid. And I feel pretty confident that Iowa State is right there in that 9-3, 8-4, maybe even 10-2 range, and potentially in that Big 12 championship. And then we've got Arizona State, 10-2, 7-2. This is a team that I probably feel more confident in than anyone. I think, between 9-3 and 11-1. Of course, I'm going 10-2. I do not see any other scenario for Arizona State. Maybe even 12-0. So yeah, I think they definitely finish near the top of the Big 12. Maybe they don't quite get to the Big 12 championship. I think that they will, but I think they definitely finish near the top. I think it's potentially the best team in the Big 12. Sam Levitt, really underrated. You've got Tyson coming back at wide receiver. He's going to be good to go. This defense is loaded. I think this might be the best defense in the Big 12. Offensive line would be the one area where maybe you're a little concerned. And I know Cam Scatterbo's gone, and a lot of people think the run game's going to struggle. I think they'll be fine. I think Kenny Dillingham, I've said this, I think he's a top 10 coach. I think right now, I think he is a top 10 coach. I think he proved that last year. And I think he's going to have this team ready to go and make another run at the Big 12 and potentially the college football playoff. And then tied at the top with them is Texas Tech. I've got them 10-2, 7-2 in the conference. This, in my opinion, if we're just talking about roster, this is the most talented roster in the Big 12. They're really loaded across the board. No question marks for them. Again, roster-wise, again, I don't really have any issues. I don't see any area on this roster where I'm concerned. The concern is really just the buy-in from the players. How does it all come together? What's the chemistry look like? Because you got a lot of transfers coming in. You got some young players who are going to be stepping up, looking to play. That's where, you know, the questions come in. Baron Morton, can he take that next step at quarterback? So, again, I'm pretty confident this team finishes near the top of the Big 12, but maybe those things don't come together for them. And, you know, again, I look at Utah and Oklahoma State. I thought they were the best teams last year, and they just didn't play well. So, I'm not as confident in Texas Tech as I am in Arizona State, but I just can't ignore this roster, and I think they do have that best roster, and so I think that's ultimately what's going to put them near the top or at the top of the Big 12. But I think, again, any of those top 9 teams could be there. If it's outside of that top 9, I'll be very surprised. But I was surprised last year, so we'll see. Let's move on now to the conference championship game. So how have I done the last 3 years? Well, not very good. Again, it's tough to predict this conference. I'd love to see someone out there that has been like really successful picking this conference, because I don't think they're out there. It's just been too much chaos. You know, you go back to 2022. That was the year where Kansas State beat TCU in the Big 12 championship. Then TCU went on to the college football playoff. So that one was, you know, kind of out of nowhere. And then the year after that, I think Texas being there was a pretty easy pick. I had them over Kansas State. It was actually Oklahoma State. So yeah, Texas was an easier pick there. I did get that one right. And then last year, totally missed it. Had Utah over Oklahoma State. Obviously, that did not happen. So yeah, it's been tough to predict. I feel again, I don't feel super confident this year, but I think it will at least be those top 9 teams. And I feel pretty good that I'm going to get at least one of these right. Arizona State, Texas Tech, at least one of them is going to be there, and I think that's going to be Arizona State. I feel very confident that this team gets there. Again, I love the coaching staff. I love what they have coming back. I think this is the team to beat, even though I think Texas Tech has the best roster. Now, I did have Texas Tech beating Arizona State in the regular season, but I'm going to flip that around. I'm going to say Arizona State. I trust them a little bit more in a big game. I think Arizona State beats Texas Tech. They win the Big 12 championship. They go back to the college football playoff. Maybe that's a predictable pick, but I just think that this is the team to get it done. Again, 9 teams that have a chance. Would love to get your thoughts on the Big 12. Do you think it could be a team outside of those top 9? I'd love to know who your surprise team is, and again, just who you have winning the Big 12. Give me your predictions down in the comments below, and of course, give me your feedback on my predictions as well. We still got to do the ACC, so that video will be coming up probably tomorrow.